Friends, this is going to be so fun. I'm sitting here with my new friend, Whitney Haldeman. Whitney, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and I would love to hear a fun fact about you.
Sure. I'm Whitney Haldeman. I'll start by saying brevity is not my forte, so cut me off at any point because I can get long-winded. I'm originally from Nashville, but I've lived in London for the past 4 years. I am a luxury travel advisor. So one part of my business is traditional travel agent, planning trips for people. I have a team of people who help bring that to life. And then another part of my business is Atlas Adventures, which are group tours for women. Essentially, people who want to be able to take trips with like-minded people, connect with other, wonderful women, and doing so through a shared love of travel. So regardless of the season of life that you're in, sometimes we get people who are single and haven't met a partner yet to travel with. Sometimes they're married with kids and they're like, none of my other mom friends will leave their kids and I still want to be able to take girls trips. So it's really to create community for people who want to be able to still travel and fill their cups in ways that are important to them, and fostering community around that. So that's what I spend my days doing. A fun fact about me, there's so many things I could say. I'm an Enneagram 7, so I'm like woo girl about everything, like enthusiast for life. I know what I can say. I have the qualifications to be a sommelier. So during COVID lockdown, I couldn't travel anymore. And I just was like, well, wine kind of gives me a place to go and visualize myself in all these beautiful places around the world whenever I open a bottle from Spain or France or wherever it may be. So I did some online trainings, and then eventually when the world slowly opened up again, I did some in-person courses. So I've done my WSET level 3, which means it's really fun. On our trips, I can lead wine tastings and stuff like that. So
that is such a great fun fact. And also that just was added to my that literally just was added to my mental bucket list. I'm like, that hadn't occurred to me. That's so awesome.
It's a fun thing to do. I think also if you love to travel and you visit a lot of these places, being able to have the knowledge, to kind of give you, when I'm at a restaurant now, I have the vocabulary to be able to articulate what I like and what sounds good to me. But it also just enhances the travel experience to be able to ask about local varietals and things like that. It's just, diving a bit deeper into the place that you're visiting, which is really fun.
That is a fantastic fun fact.
Thank you.
Tell me, so your website, your company is called The Blonde Atlas, right?
Yeah. So it started as a blog, which was Blonde Atlas. And then Atlas has kind of evolved where there's Blonde Atlas, but then the group trips are Atlas Adventures. So it's kind of 2 titles, which can be confusing at times. But
no, that's
Atlas,
okay.
Blonde Atlas Adventures, I'll respond to all 3.
Tell me, Tell me what this, so you said it started as a blog, walk me back. Because I mean, you have, the job that you're doing right now is so many people's dream job. I feel like we need to hear the journey that got you here.
Speaking of wine, I'm I should pour a glass because this is a story.
I mean, it is girls' night, although technically it's at least here it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
I was it's 4 o'clock here.
Absolutely.
So I worked in advertising for 7 years post-university. I didn't really love my job. I loved my job on paper, but it was no work-life balance, really demanding, really stressful. And I found myself using all of my available time off and disposable income, just traveling as much as I could. It was what brought me joy. I went through a series of some really big life changes in a very short period of time around, I guess I was 27. So I was in a 7-year relationship that abruptly ended. And I kind of lost a whole circle of friends around then. And then 6 months later, 8 months later, my advertising agency was doing layoffs and I got laid off. So I lost my job, a circle of friends, and this 7-year partnership that I thought was going to be lifelong, all within a year. And I feel my life just kind of burned to the ground, and travel was this one thing that still brought me a lot of joy. So I had started the blog right before the breakup, literally had just finished the branding. And then the first year, kind of still working in advertising, it was my creative outlet. And I just threw myself into that post breakup. So I took my severance money and was like, you know what? I never studied abroad. It was my biggest regret. I'm going to travel for a little while because it's the one thing that's bringing me joy. I had worked in tourism on some advertising accounts. And so I had some contacts at like tourism boards, and I just got really scrappy, like pitching myself, being like, hey, if I write a blog post about this, could I, try your restaurant or stay at a hotel at a discounted rate? And kind of just put together this 3-month trip that was a combination of sleeping on friends' couches, doing a few hotel trades, doing really cheap Airbnbs where I'm like sleeping on someone's couch, and kind of strung together what was supposed to be a 3-month trip that kind of turned into a 5-month trip. And it turned into like me realizing I wanted to move to London, me realizing I wanted to work and travel, and just kind of it sounds like, I always say it always sounds so simple when I break it down into, a 2 or 3 minute explanation, but it was truly just years of probably 5 or 6 years of just not even necessarily thinking it was going to be a career at first. It was just, this was what was bringing me joy in a really dark time, and slowly, like one brick at a time, kind of unintentionally building a business around it. But it's just a reflection. I think travel and then connecting with people are two of my favorite things in the world. And so I think what I do now is such a natural reflection of those things, like creating these groups, creating community, especially because like I said, my whole friend group kind of revolved around my relationship. So then suddenly I was, starting over when my friends were starting families. And so being able to have people who are in my same season to travel with and just kind of give me hope that everyone's life just unfolds at different times, and that's okay. It's so rewarding now to be in a position to create that for other people and while simultaneously showing them the world. There's so much more I could say, but I feel like, limited amount of time, lots of questions.
Whitney, I'm like, I am truly crying right now because like you and I are soulmates. Like seriously, travel and friendship are two of my absolute greatest loves, and two of the things that have made the biggest difference in my life. Like my whole life has been changed by travel, and specifically travel with my friends.
Yeah.
I just like I can relate to your story so much. It's funny. I had a book come out like 2 months ago, which is crazy. But in it, thank you. I feel like I still need a nap after it.
I'm sure.
But in it, I didn't set out to do this, but I sort of ended up telling the story of how we've made it to a place where we're about to move to Spain as a family. And it's been kind of this 10-year journey of me saying, like, I want to go, I'm ready to go. And my husband saying, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. And in the book, I talk about how like that was one of the most enduring conflicts that we've ever had, was like my pull to go, and he had a pull to go too, but also like there were some roots that he wanted to establish and some like foundations he wanted to lay for us, which I'm very appreciative of now. But I remember talking to him about like why this is so important to me. And he's like, Steph, a lot of people never travel. Like a lot of people don't have passports. The fact that you are traveling as much as you are, or like want to, it's like, that's a really privileged position to be in. And I'm like, I get it. Also, I am willing to sacrifice basically everything else for this. Like I will never buy a pair of shoes again in my life. I'll never go to another concert. I'll never go to there are just 1,000 other like little luxuries that I would give up for travel, because travel is the thing that is so soul-filling for me. It's like deeply spiritual for me. Yeah. And I don't get to hear other people reflect that quite as often. And so anyway, that's why I'm just tearing up over here. It's a unique
position, because I think that, I remember struggling a lot with that. After I would do these stints where I would go abroad for a few months, like as long as I can. And then essentially I'd like run out of money and be like, I need to go home for a bit and work and save up. And then be like, okay, now I'm going to go again. And every time I'd kind of re-enter back into life in the States, it was always so jarring, because I felt like I was this new person who, again, being in a privileged position to an extent, but also being in a like, I'm sacrificing a lot of things that my friends aren't. My friends have beautiful houses, and I'm like living with my mom right now when I'm in the States. And, it's just, but it was, coming back to this space of like, I feel so different. And I feel like I think just travel does so much for you in terms of opening your heart and your mind to the world, giving you more empathy, making you more understanding of why people are the way that they are. And so sometimes it can be really like difficult when you come back feeling like this transformed person and then talking to people who haven't had that experience. And of course you can't hold that against them. But when it's someone who you used to be in that same spot, you know what I mean? To then be like, oh, wait, but it feels like that scene in Wizard of Oz. I say this all the time. When I first traveled, we did a family trip to Italy and Switzerland. And my dad always compares it to, he's like, you know that scene in Wizard of Oz where everything goes from black and white to Technicolor? He was like, you on that trip was just the most transformed I've ever seen you as a parent, just like seeing you come to life. And I feel like I use that metaphor all the time now because it's like, yeah, what travel does to you, at least to me, it may not have this experience on everyone, but I would argue what travel can do to most people is just show you a world you didn't know existed. It's such a special thing. I'm so thankful for what it does for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so special. Talk to me a little bit more about group travel for women. I, for the last 8 years or so have had the honor of getting to teach this course called Love Your Single Life. And it's for women who are finding themselves single longer than they thought that they would be and trying to figure out what to do with that. And the heart of the course is to help you make the most of today, because that is the thing that I found prepares us the best for everything else that's next.
Yeah.
And also, if we skip the season that we're in, that becomes a pattern in our life where we're always looking at the next thing and we just miss our whole lives.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing experience to get to teach the course. We've had like 7,000 women go through it or something crazy. It's like amazing. But one of the things that I hear from so many of the women that I've talked to is, I would love to travel. Travel is a huge part of what I would love to do in this season. But again, exactly like you said, I don't have anyone to go with. And that's something that I think we all a position we all find ourselves in different seasons. Like, my in-laws had their kids much earlier in life. And so they're finding themselves as like empty nesters and retired.
Yeah.
In a time when like everyone else's kids are still in college. So I think there are a lot of times where we want to travel with friends and we don't necessarily have people in the same stage of life. So like, how did that come about for you? Like, you're solving that problem in the most beautiful way. How did that happen?
Yeah, I think when I decided I'm just going to travel, it started by me saying, I'm going to be gone for 3 months, telling all my friends and just getting really strategic in how I sold it to them about, okay, you meet me here, you meet me here. And I'd have little gaps and days in between. And that worked for a while. But then there were longer stretches where, okay, now I'm going to be alone for a week. Now I'm going to be, and I always still had a wonderful time. In fact, I have so many special memories of days I spent by myself in certain locations. But I also have a list of just remembering so many times where I was somewhere amazing and feeling like I'm just wired. I'm an extrovert. I need my time to recharge, but I much prefer to be with people. And so I think being in a position where I was just constantly putting myself out there and feeling like I was hustling so hard to have friends come meet me or to connect with people where I was and not always being able to find a solution. I had gone on a yoga retreat a year or two kind of into this process. And it just kind of dawned on me that something like this should exist for women who I do like yoga, but you should be able to do this even if you don't like yoga. You should be able to go meet people like this. That was kind of an easy way for me to sign up for a trip so that I knew I could meet people and have activities and like share experiences with people. But I was like, well, what if you just wanted to go to Italy? What if you wanted to go wine tasting or truffle hunting or explore a city together, shop, like have girl time? And that should exist too. And so I just, through travel planning, there was one property that I had sent a lot of my individual clients to on the travel planning side. And I kind of just threw the idea out to them one day. If I were to book, 12 rooms for 20 something people, like, what would that look like? Started asking questions and then kind of started crunching numbers and putting together an itinerary and just slowly sort of, this is a really fiscally irresponsible thing that I did, but I just believed in it so much. I was like, I think I can do this. I'm going to announce it. I had slowly built up an Instagram following at the time. I had a friend who also had a platform who had volunteered to like co-host with me. And so I literally put the deposit for this because I had to have the rooms before I could sell it. I literally just put it on a credit card and was like, I'm trusting that this is going to sell out. I'm putting faith, and I think this is an idea that can reach people. And I told all my friends, if this doesn't sell, then we're taking a trip to Italy to help me pay for this. And yeah, and it's just, it all kind of like, evolved from there. But yeah, I think it was more so just identifying that if this doesn't exist for me, then why not make it? I feel like it's so aligned with who I am as a person and like what I enjoy doing and kind of where my talents lie too. So I just kind of went for it. Yeah.
How many trips have you guys done at this point? And like, where have you gone?
A lot of places. So, well, first of all, the first one we did was in 2019, which November, great timing, right before the pandemic.
So there was like a little gap.
Yeah. So we did one in 2019. 2020 took a little break. End of 2021, we did 3. 2022, we did 7. Last year, we did 8. This year, we're on track to do, I think, 12.
Oh my gosh.
So we've done over like 20, somewhere between 25 and 30. I'd have to do a bit of math. And we've gone, I'd say our trips focus on Europe. We've done the majority of them in Europe. That's where kind of my travel expertise really lies, and my teams. So as this has grown, I've met a lot of friends abroad. I have brilliant women that I work with who have lived abroad, speak other languages. We have people who speak French, Italian, German, Greek, English. I think I'm missing one, but we have so many like just brilliant, well-traveled, like globally minded women, which is a really huge, important factor for me because as we were building kind of the foundation for Atlas, I really wanted it to not just be, not that there's anything wrong with this, but I don't want it to just be, I want there to be a learning aspect too. I like what I was saying. I think immersing yourself in the culture that you're in, really learning from the destination, not just getting photos for Instagram, like that's hugely important to me. And so having a team of people who naturally that kind of exudes who they are and what they do was really important. I went off on a tangent and I forgot the question.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's exactly what I was wondering. Can you tell me like, I'm just like, okay, so you said it's mostly in Europe.
Yes. We did. So my fiance is from New Zealand. So we did 2 New Zealand trips this past February, which was amazing. And then last year I fell absolutely head over heels in love with Africa, like safari, sub-Saharan Africa. It was the most life-changing trip of my life. I am a huge animal lover, but also just a huge like enthusiast for like the natural habitat, like our planet, taking care of it and seeing animals in the wild, like that was truly life-changing. We did our first safari trip in March, a couple months ago, and we just sold out a trip yesterday for another one next year, which I'm really excited about. Such a special place. Can't advocate for it enough.
That is so cool. I also love Africa. I don't know if I always feel weird saying that because I'm like, that's like, well, I love North America. Well, it's exactly. Like, well, there's a lot going on in North America.
Well, but I say I love Europe a lot. It's like...
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're just going to let it be okay.
I've been on, I've done Botswana and South Africa. I'm planning some in like Kenya, Tanzania. And so then it's like, you don't say I love safari. That's not a destination.
Yeah. It's okay. That makes me feel better. Because I'm like, I recognize that it's a whole bunch of different countries.
Totally.
So I want to change gears a little bit and talk about some practical tips and kind of tricks for travel. I know one of the things that keeps the majority of us from travel is that we feel like it's really expensive. And for being the travel enthusiast that I am, I'm not like super up on all of the hacks for getting more affordable airfare or hotels or things like that. So, and I feel like there's a lot of like rumors, like people are like, oh, we'll buy on Tuesday because that's better. Is it? So I want to hear just anything you have to tell us specifically for the women who are thinking, I would love to do this. I don't know that I can afford it. Like, what are some ways to make this more affordable?
Sure. So I'll start by saying candidly that travel has gotten really expensive. I do think there's some money saving ideas, and I can get to that in just a second. But the first thing I would encourage people is to be really like aggressive in their saving and kind of what we were talking about earlier, prioritizing. So if you know I want to do X trip, like be realistic about what that costs, and then how can you look at what you're already spending and like reappropriate some of those funds to go towards this, right? Because what I'm seeing trending wise is like flights are more expensive, hotels are more expensive, like the whole travel experience has gotten more expensive. But I don't think that it has to be prohibitive. Obviously, everyone's financial situation is different, but I do think there's ways that you can, cut some corners and do some cool tricks. But I do think it's important to also be realistic about the landscape looking different than it used to. So something that we just did that I think is a really cool trick if you have time on your hands is something called an around the world plane ticket. So basically for work, I was doing, like I said, the New Zealand trips in February. We had a South Africa trip in March, and then I was planning to go home to the States to visit my family. And when I thought about all the back and forth that we are about to do, I remember hearing someone talk about an around the world ticket. So I just kind of looked into it, and literally it was a fraction of the cost. You can get our ticket from London to Nashville, then like Florida to Peru, Santiago to Auckland to, South Africa, and then back to London. If you were to book that in economy on an around the world ticket, it was like $5,000, which sounds like a lot. It is. But when you think about all the different legs that you're doing there, that's pennies compared to what you would pay for individual tickets if you were doing round trip. So if you go through, it's called like oneworld.com. That's who we went through. So that's like American, British Airways, Qantas, those airline partners. They also do it through like, what's the other one that United, Star Alliance. So like Singapore Air, United, those airlines. So if you were someone who said, let's say you are like, I want to take a gap year, or I have like a sabbatical that I'm planning for, and how can I stretch it farther? That's a great hack to look into, because if you're flexible with your days and flexible with where you go, you can also, like, we booked a lot of our connecting flights. So for example, I booked a Southwest flight from Nashville to Florida when I was going to, from one stop to another. So that wasn't part of my around the world ticket. So if you just get the main hubs, like say you want to go to all the continents or whatever it is, you can book your own kind of connecting flights in between. That's a great money saving hack for, again, that's still a large investment, but I think it's worth mentioning because that's something that I've done personally recently that just was like, I was floored at what that cost. I looked at the same price if I were to book one-way tickets, and it was going to be almost triple that. So that's a really great hack.
That is a great hack.
Additionally, I would say, like, if you want to play the points game, I'm like, I haven't quite figured out how to use the points. I have a friend who's really good at it, so she helps me with it. But like getting a travel credit card that can give you like rewards. I get 5 times I have a Amex Platinum, but I travel quite a lot. So there is a high annual fee, but it makes sense if you're someone who's traveling a lot for work. Any like flights or hotels that you book, you get 5 times the points. Anything else that you're shopping on, you get points, and it can accrue. So you can book hotels on there. You can get hotel and flight credits, everything that's kind of in the travel wheelhouse. If you don't follow the points guy, he's wonderful. I've met him. He's such a lovely human. And he has tons of hacks for kind of teaching you there is a whole like science behind it. And it does involve kind of you investing some time into learning how to do it, but it definitely can be done. I see people do it all the time. And my fiance and I went to Bangkok last year, and a friend of mine helped me use my points, which wasn't that many points. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the two of us got to fly business because of the points. Again, sorry, I don't play the points game, so I don't know. I can't educate that on here, but it's where I would check out the points guy for that.
Yeah. One thing about that like, because I need to dig into that further. The points have been awesome for us. Like I feel like this is so anecdotal, but for so long, Southwest was really great for, especially leaving out of Nashville, for like kind of hopping around the US. And I feel like it's gotten a lot of times lately when I've looked, it looks like it's more expensive than other carriers. So we've kind of deviated from our loyalty a little bit. But there were years where we didn't pay for a flight because everything that we bought personally and everything that we bought from my business would just go on our Southwest credit cards. And it was like, trips home, trips, vacations, that has changed. I will say now that I have 2 kids, because buying 4 tickets, my points go way faster.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Way faster. But it really is like, I'm not a points guru. And even so, like I had years of free flights. So it is possible. And I have heard from a couple people, one of my hesitations to really like digging into it was, isn't that hard on your credit? And like, it turns out it's not. Like if you follow the rules, like it doesn't mean you're gonna tank your credit. So those are like, I feel like you and I both know enough to make someone like a little bit dangerous, but we'll get someone else on the show to talk us through it specifically. Totally. But I love that. Is there any other like kind of prioritizing systems you have for, what you're going to spend? Like, because flights aren't the only expensive or aren't the only thing you have to pay for on a trip. Are there things where you're like, this or that? Like, you can do this if you don't do that.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
We do this a lot with hotels for clients. So my area of specialty has evolved. It's great because we have a team who, like, we have some team members who are more like solo budget travel, and they have lots of great tips there. I, through kind of just who I got connected to in the industry, have gravitated more towards like luxury hotels. And so we really can kind of run the gamut in terms of advice and offerings that we can help you with based on your budget. But something that we do a lot and what we see a lot is people who want a special luxury experience. Because I will say there's something so magical about staying at a luxury hotel, but it's not all hotels are created equal. Not all luxury hotels are created equal. So something that we do a lot is like asking clients, like, okay, let's say you're doing a 10-day trip to Italy. You're doing Rome, Florence, and the Amalfi Coast. Just for an example, Rome and Florence, you are not going to be at your hotel. You're going to be out sightseeing. You're going to be eating. You're going to be walking around, all of that. So like do an Airbnb or something that's a bit more budget conscious. Amalfi Coast is an expensive destination in itself, but if there was a couple nights that you were willing to say, okay, let's splurge a little bit more. If you're in the Amalfi Coast, like even if it's, let's say you're there 5 nights, what if you stayed in a really nice hotel for 2 of those nights? Because then you can lay by the pool, you can like milk those hotel amenities. And then maybe the other 2 days, you stay at a more boutique hotel when you're out like exploring all of the towns. So that's something that we love to help clients do, is kind of say, okay, if this is your overall budget, what if we go a little bit lower per night on the city hotels when you're not really going to be there that much, and then use, these couple nights to splurge. Or a big trick that we love to do with clients, let's say you're doing Paris the whole time. What if you do a more boutique hotel or, budget-friendly hotel the whole trip, but then your last night, you're tired at this point, you've seen everything you want to do, you're sad that the trip's coming to an end. What if you stay at a really nice hotel that last night and you just get to have like room service and put the slippers on and see the Eiffel Tower from your room? Like, I think just kind of reappropriating how you spend your money so that you can still have those like really special experiences that you see on Instagram or, wherever else, that to kind of make that more attainable. So we love helping people kind of like hack their budget as much as possible to give you those experiences. I think I have so much fun doing that.
I love that. And that's I don't know that I've thought of it like that. But as I'm thinking through past travel, like we stayed in a place that was like, I feel like we did one of our best hotels in Rome. And I'm like, we didn't necessarily like need to, looking back, it was cool, and I love a good hotel. Yeah. However, like, I don't know that we really got our bang for our buck there because, yeah, exactly. We were out so much. Yeah. I think about that with food too. Like, Paris is a great example. I studied abroad just for a month, summer after my freshman year of college in Paris. And I remember like for so many meals, we would eat like, I don't know, like street food, basically. You know, we would get from like a vendor or a food truck or something like that. Or, I mean, for so many meals, like maybe a few too many, I ate like just brie and bread. And it was like the most delicious thing in the world.
In France, yeah.
As you should in France. But those meals are really cheap. And so like thinking through, you know, which meals are important to you, which ones aren't. Like for breakfast, are you cool with like a coffee and a pastry? That's not that expensive. Then you can go and experience something like really great for dinner and kind of appropriate it out that way. And really, I would say in most places in the world, the best food that I've gotten has been from street vendors or has been, you know, the mom and pop place that doesn't have all the hype around it.
Yeah. I think that's something why we kind of take like a lot of pride in the work that we do. Because it's like, if you were taking the time and the effort and the investment to go, I always say, I feel like people used to use travel agents when they didn't have access to information. And now we have too much access to information. And so sometimes it can be overwhelming to know which blog to listen to or what to choose, or was this even relevant? You know, read this blog that was written 3 years ago and now this restaurant's closed. And so something we really pride ourselves in is like, regardless of your budget, you know, we have a fee to work with us, but like we can create an itinerary that is like custom tailored to your budget to give you the most bang for your buck and get creative to like really tailor a trip to you. And like sometimes that's getting creative. Like sometimes we'll, you know, say, are you flexible on when you travel? Because we'll have people who say, we want to go in July or August. And I'm like, could you do September or even October? Like depending on the destination, you can get a much better deal. So there are ways that you can kind of cheat the system. I think it depends on the destination that you're visiting. It depends on your flexibility. It depends on, you know, your overall budget and what your non-negotiables are. But there's a lot of different ways that you can get creative and still have, I think that's the biggest thing. People hear luxury travel and they just think, oh, unattainable, or, oh, that's like, you know, I can't do that. But I do think there's ways to get creative, and we love helping people figure out how to make that happen.
I love that. I love that. I feel like I want to go back to this point because I think it's just really important. You know, you've mentioned Instagram a couple times and, you know, Instagram destinations. And I think that travel is one of those things where we really can get caught in the comparison thing, or like, because it's so flashy. Like it's going to a bunch of, you know, my best friend is really into music, and she will spend every last penny on concerts. Yeah. I could go the rest of my life and never go to a concert except for Taylor Swift.
I was just about to say,
I did not get Eras tickets. No. I feel like I'm the one person. I know that that's not true, but no, I have not gotten Eras tickets. If anyone has some anywhere in Europe, tell me.
Honestly, resale is really great in Europe. So I would, especially once you move over, look at where she's going the rest of the year. And I'm going to Poland in August, and the resale. Okay, so one thing I will say, sorry, another hack that's not travel related, but it's Taylor Swift related. StubHub in the US, or I don't know exactly which vendor it is, but you can't do like the scalper thing. So like when we were in Stockholm, the resale that we were seeing, if we wanted to go like that day, I saw plenty of tickets for like 100 euros. You can get really good resale in Europe because they don't have they have like more protective laws to help so that you can't like you have to sell it for like face value basically.
Yeah. Okay. I may be meeting you there. We'll talk later. We'll talk later. But I feel like, you know, my best friend Michelle going to concerts, like that's not quite as, it's not quite as like Instagrammable to be like, oh, wow, look at all they're doing. But travel's like the most Instagrammable thing. Like the thing that's like most envy worthy, like that looks the flashiest. And so I think it's so easy for us to go, wow, look what they're doing. And like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
And I feel like bringing it back to when it comes to comparison, you never know what's happening on the inside for that person. Like you never know the behind the scenes. You don't know where they're staying. You don't know what they sacrificed to be there. You don't know how much credit card debt they've racked up to take that trip.
Totally.
Not recommended. But like, you don't know whose couch they're sleeping on. You don't know how, like, the tiny, eating out or grocery or entertainment budget that they have in their normal life in order to afford that.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's just worth saying that if you see someone like really going all out in one part of their life publicly, don't forget that you don't know what it's costing them in other parts of their lives. And it costs everybody something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm always really conscious of this because promoting travel on my social media is how I get new clients. It's how I fund my business. Like it's my livelihood. But prior to, not even prior to, I still find myself in this, like, how do I bring some like levity to the situation? Because like, yes, I'm getting to go to these amazing places and I feel really fortunate to have the opportunities that I do. But I also I'm not a trust fund baby that had all this handed to me. It was something that took a lot of years of like, literally, like, while my friends were buying houses and decorating them and pouring into other areas of their life, that like, I'm, and even in relationships, like I couldn't really date because I was living out of a suitcase for years, like I'm 37 and getting married in August and like only now starting to think about some of these other areas of my life, because for years, like travel is just what was bringing me joy and what I chose to pour into. And so I am cognizant of that sometimes, where I'm like, it's so easy to make snap judgments about people when you see like, oh, this week I'm in Greece and next week I'm in Italy. And, but there's so much more under the surface of like, A, why that's the case, and B, like my heartbeat and intention in sharing. But yeah, I think prior to that, if you would have rewind, I remember I wrote a blog post years ago of basically saying like how I travel full time. And I remember saying, there's weeks when I get a cool hotel collaboration opportunity and I'm staying in this like luxe 5-star hotel. And then the next week I'm home in Nashville trying to make $50 worth of groceries last a week, because, it's like there's a lot of high highs and low lows. And it's all choice that I'm making to be able to have these experiences, because it's what lights me up and, makes me happy. I can definitely say I didn't always make the wisest financial decisions, taking my severance money and, on paper, I should have been like, I'm going to look for another job and I'm going to, save that money. And, that's not what I did. Was it wise? Probably not. Did it work out? Yeah. But I agree with you too. There's also another dangerous end of that scale, which is people racking up credit card debt or doing things from a place of being performative. So I think it's like any rule with social media. You have to just remember that anything that we see on that platform is a highlight reel, and we can't know the person's intention. Like me sharing something because I'm showcasing a hotel because I want clients to know that like, hey, this is a hotel you can book in Italy and here's the perks you can get if you book with me. Like, but I have to do that a lot. And so people can make all sorts of judgments about, am I sharing to brag? Am I sharing to, I don't know, create another message? And we can really get like philosophical and Dr. Phil about this if we want, about judgments people make and assumptions that are out there. But I think it's just, having a healthy relationship with like the content I consume, and knowing that under the surface, everyone has their stuff. Everyone has things that they're dealing with. Everyone has, we're all seeing the highlight reel, right?
Yeah. One of the things, the whole heart of my book, Create a Life You Love, is to quiet outside voices so you can hear your own. And that is so true with something like this, where it's like, it's important to figure out what's actually important to you and then build your life accordingly, because it's so easy to build a life that looks like other people's or is performative, or like, if you don't care about seeing the Eiffel Tower and taking that like Instagrammable pic in front of it, don't waste your time. Don't do that. Do something else. Like there's not one right way to live your life, which I say all the time. And there's also not one right way to spend your money or travel or spend your time or like, but it is really important, I think, to stop and figure out what's important to us so that we can like live accordingly. And I just, Whitney, I love, love, love the way that you're doing that. Can you tell us, we'll have links to everything Atlas related in the show notes, but tell us just really quick, the easiest place for people to find you.
So the easiest place for people to find me is at blonde_Atlas on Instagram. That's where I share not real time, usually a little delayed for safety reasons, my travels where I am. And then Atlas Adventures Trips on Instagram is where we have, more in-depth there's a little bit of separation of church and state in terms of like my personal travels and then the Atlas trips. The Atlas Adventures Trips is how you can find out more about the trips that we're selling. If you want to join us, we'd love to have you. We have a lot of trips that are coming up soon. They usually go on sale roughly like 6 months before so that people have time to like ask off work, save, we space out all the deposits, all that. Blonde Atlas, blonde_Atlas, and then Atlas Adventures Trips are where I'd say most of the action happens, or blondeatlas.com. It's all on there too.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming to Girls Night.
Yeah, thank you. It's been such a joy talking to you. I'm excited for your adventure abroad in Spain. And if you're in London, let me know.
I definitely will.